Welcome to the MFS Wellness Podcast, a hybrid structure encompassing health, fitness, self-improvement, and entertainment, where no topic is off limits and all opinions are graciously welcomed.
Let's get on with the show!
And now, here's the host of the show, Mike Sinopoli.
This is the MFS Wellness Podcast. I am Mike Sinopoli. It is Tuesday, January 9th, 2024. And on today's episode, we are discussing 9 behaviors that are not considered a badge of honor, though some act as if they are. My inspiration for this episode, it comes from an Instagram post by Marci Nevin, who has graciously accepted my invitation to be on this podcast. And if you don't know Marci, she is a certified personal trainer, macro certified coach, health mindset coach, avocado connoisseur, and she is the person who formally inducted me and gave me the nudge to join the air fryer cult. And I've never turned back, and it's changed my life. Marci, how are you?
I am so well. I totally forgot about the air fryer.
Yes.
Thank you for the reminder.
Well,
and you're liking it, clearly.
Oh, I'm loving it. Thank you. I actually just made, right before this recording, I just made my daughter some air fryer chicken, and she's even eating it now as opposed to before. So,
amazing.
Yeah, it's
I started them young.
sort of,
So what's your favorite thing to cook in the air fryer?
you know, I got to say it's either salmon or broccoli. What about you?
Okay. Oh, I don't do a lot of salmon in the air fryer. I would say turkey bacon. I do
Okay.
like that. And any type of burgers, like a turkey burger, a beef burger. Yeah. And then, the vegetables are good. Brussels sprouts are great in it. Broccoli is not my favorite. I feel like it gets a little bit too charred.
Yeah.
I love burnt broccoli, but there's just something about doing it in the oven that I prefer.
Yeah, I can see that. I am a sucker, and I love the charred. I would almost have all the broccoli just be just totally black. It's crazy. Like I really love that texture. It's just, I don't even know. I think it just saps all the nutrients out of it probably too. I don't know. But either way, it's better than eating potato chips and other crap that I would be shoveling down my throat. So, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, and I have to say, the listeners cannot see us on the podcast, but
Sure.
I was so pleasantly surprised by my very warm welcome when I joined the call that your background was an avocado or a bunch of avocados.
Yes.
So
I found the best. Exactly. We have a lot of, if I ever get a good avocado, I know to take a picture of that, send it over to you, because I know you appreciate that. And, it's just, avocados are a tricky food. You never know what you're going to get. They're either rock hard, too soft, or they trick you. They feel perfect, but you open them up and it's just a mess inside, and we just get sad about it. So, but just to kind of jump in, real quick, I'm sure a lot of people listening do know who you are, follow you on social media. But for you, fitness, like, where did you start? You don't have to get into too much in depth here, but like, what drove you to get so into it? Kind of the way I am too. We just really take a lifestyle on. What drove you to that?
Well, I always say that it's kind of like a running joke, maybe with myself. A lot of times the people who get into fitness as a coach, it's because they had their own journey that they had to embark on, so to speak. So for me, I was kind of an overweight kid when I was younger. So I never got made fun of or anything like that, but I felt different compared to all of my friends. Like, I was a little bit overweight. So I just really felt self-conscious about that. And I would say, I can't remember exactly if I was between like 10 or 12, and I decided that I was going to do something about it. So I found this is really dating me, I will be 40 at the end of the month, but VHS tapes that my mom had used that were, aerobics. And I started following those, thinking that it was going to help me lose weight. It did nothing. So I started asking my mom for diet advice, and she was saying things like, oh, let's go on the cabbage soup diet together. Let's, cut out sugar, like, eat low fat, whatever the case may be. So I tried all that. Nothing really moved the needle. At one point I found this, I guess you would call it a system called the Firm. So it was these women who were lifting weights, and they were jacked. Like, they looked more like fitness competitors, and I loved that look. So I don't know how I got the money when I was that age. I had no job, but I managed to buy this product off an infomercial. So that was my first foray into, what you would call weight training, I guess. And then at one point, I coupled that with Weight Watchers. So my mom and I did Weight Watchers together when I was going into high school, I think, and I lost the weight. So I definitely started to feel better. My confidence began to return, and I really just got bit by the fitness and nutrition bug at that point. So my sophomore year, I had joined the gym. I was going in the morning before school to step classes with my mom. I was going back at night to lift weights. I was learning about nutrition. So that happened for a couple of years. And then my senior year of high school, I was taking a sports medicine class, and one of the things that we did was read this book called Body for Life. Are you familiar with that? Bill Phillips?
I feel like I've heard of it, but I have not read that.
Yeah. So it was, I mean, looking back, it definitely had its flaws. So it was the whole, eat 5 or 6 meals per day. So you would eat 3 main meals of a protein, a carb, a vegetable, very low fat. And then in between, you would have a shake. And then on the weekend, you could have your cheat day. So that was the very, disordered mindset, if you will. I actually never did the cheat days. And then you would couple that with workouts. So it was 3 strength training sessions per week. And then on the off days, you would do high intensity interval training. So I followed that, continued to make progress. And then I went off to college, and that's when things got a little bit dicey. And I always say, for no fault of my own, I was literally just following what I was reading in the fitness magazine. So at that time, it was Oxygen, Muscle and Fitness, Hers. So all these women who were figure competitors, they were muscular, and that's the look that I desired. So thinking, well, if I follow what they're doing, I will end up looking like them. No, that was not the case. What happened was I actually lost the freshman 15 instead of gaining it. So I was very underweight, and then it did really create a disordered relationship with both food and exercise. So I struggled with that throughout college. Finally, got some help. It was never to the point where I had to, go to a treatment center or anything.
Sure.
But my friends did. They kind of staged an intervention, and they said, we're really worried about you. This is what we're noticing. So I went and got some support from the nutritionist on campus, and that definitely helped move the needle. I gained a little weight back. So by the time I graduated, I was definitely in a healthier spot. And then I guess right after college, I moved home. I met a bodybuilder at the gym, and he put me on a meal plan. He put me on a, very structured strength training program. So, I mean, yeah, that's kind of how it all started. And then it just continued to progress from there. And eventually, by the time I was 24, I hired my first online coach, and he is who introduced me to more flexible dieting, got me out of the cardio bunny mentality, really focused on lifting primarily. And I got in the best shape of my life, and I really improved my relationship with both food and fitness. And I actually had gotten my personal training certification when I was in college, not thinking that I was going to do anything with it. And then I got fired from my second sales job. I'm like, well, I got to figure out what I'm going to do with my life. And in the meantime, I might as well train people. So that's how I got into actually training clients, thinking it was going to be temporary. But 12 years later, I was still doing it until the pandemic hit, and then gym shut down overnight. So fortunately, I had started to build my online business and had gotten some clients. So I was able to continue moving forward with that. And that is that's where I am today.
That's where you are. Yeah, it seems like a familiar path to many people, and it just depends on when they decide to fall off or not. And you never fell off, really. You just kind of kept going, and that's a good message, I think, to put out for anybody. Marci's been through some things that were ups and downs, dicey areas, like you said, and that's the same thing with me. I tried extreme diets. I tried very restrictive ones. I went off the rails to where I was eating like a complete slob all the time, and then I think it's just comes to that point to where you had enough. And you just got to figure this thing out. And it takes a lot of falling down, getting back up again, and keeping it going. And I think for you getting into it, and as well for me, I think once you finally figure that out, after all the frustration, there's a level of excitement that sort of hits you, and you've got it. And after you've got yourself going, you just can't help but want to share that with other people and say, hey, look, all this crap, let me help you just cut out at least 4 or 5 times where you're going to fall down, and I can at least help you go without getting as frustrated or losing as much time. And you just kind of go that route, and you just become so passionate for this sort of thing.
Yeah.
That's where I think, how that's one of the best things in the Instagram community, or even online. Like, social media is a double-edged sword at times, but
Sure.
there's for as much crap information as there is out there, I mean, there's a lot of good information from somebody like you and others that are doing this within the space. And that's what leads me to this episode that I asked you to do. And thank you again for being here and doing this with me. But you'd put out a post December 7th of last year. And I read it, and I thought it was one of the just most on point posts. It was one of those what are they, slide posts? What do you call them?
Swipe post. Yeah.
Swipe post. Yeah. So you got 10 slides, and if you want to look it up, it's her name is at Marci Nevin, MarciNevin on Instagram, and it's from December 7th, like we said, and it's 9 behaviors that are not a badge of honor, and a lot of people think that they are. So I want to go through them really quick with you. I'm going to read them off and what you'd wrote here, and then we can just kind of elaborate on each one a little bit and just go a little deeper into them and give some examples, because I just thought this was solid. So
I will say really quick, all bred by my own personal experience. So I said that in the caption, like I am speaking to this because I engaged in all of these behaviors myself.
Absolutely.
I had to learn the hard way.
Absolutely. And like I say a lot on here, whenever I come on here, and I don't want to sound preachy, I know Marci doesn't either, but like, we've made these mistakes. We've taken a lot of these on ourselves. We've said them, we've done them. I know, for instance, I never shame anybody for where they've been or what they've done, because I've made all the mistakes. As a matter of fact, if you go back in the archives of my podcast, I believe it's episode 10, I actually roasted myself for everything. Yeah. For everything I've ever done that was silly and ridiculous and, just 600 calorie days. We've all been there. It's just, just figuring it all out as you go. So I think the more frustration you have, the more you want to get into it. But I'm going to jump right into this. So remember, these are what people wear as badges of honor, but they should not be. We don't want these to be badges of honor. And the first one, huge: surviving on little sleep. Because getting enough sleep, as Marci writes, getting enough sleep is essential for your health and well-being. It improves mood and mental performance, lowers the risk of disease, allows better emotional regulation and decision-making. It is also the magic pill for losing fat, gaining strength, and building muscle. So when you're in my first episode, I put in 5 pillars of body composition, and one of the top ones, just below stress, is sleep. And I think that sleep, and I'll let you go on this one here, gets a little bit, it's such a word that gets a bad rap. I mean, we're either using it as laziness or sex, but I think sleep, it's either sleep, laziness, or sex. Like, sleep is so important to us. So, you made that your number one. Is there a reason for that?
Not necessarily, but I think it's fortuitous that it was number one, because it has such a downstream effect on everything else in your life. Like everything that you read off, yes, absolutely. But when it comes to body composition, I mean, one, you're not going to recover from your workouts if you are sleep deprived. Then you are not going to have the energy to train hard, to get enough movement in, especially if, let's say, fat loss is your goal. We want to be moving around as much as possible. So if you're sleep deprived, even just subconsciously, you might not be moving as much. And then also from a nutrition perspective, it does dysregulate your hunger and satiety hormones. Like, I know I am a completely different person when I have gotten a good night's sleep compared to when I have not. So like, even last week, I made the mistake, it's like, know thyself, Marci, but I did not listen. I went against my own intuition and drank a lot of fully caffeinated coffee. And I was so buzzed even at 10 o'clock at night. So probably got, 5 hours of sleep that night, felt awful the next day, was ravenous, and nothing would kind of satisfy my appetite. I had a crappy workout. I didn't feel good in my own head. And then compare that with last night, where I got 8 hours of great sleep because I wasn't drinking caffeine. I'll throw that in there. You could say the same thing about alcohol. And I feel great today. Like I had a solid workout, my appetite is regulated, I have good energy, mental clarity, all the things. So, yeah, again, it has a really influential downstream effect on every aspect of your life. So if physique goals is, what you're after, you really have to take sleep into consideration. And I know it's not the sexy crash diet or intense exercise protocol that everyone wants to chase. And there's also, I think, this, oh gosh, how do I say it? The whole like sleep when you're dead
Oh,
mentality,
yep,
right?
yep.
This like
Team,
hardcore,
team no sleep. Team no
yes,
sleep,
team
right?
no sleep, team no days off. And people, again, they wear it as a badge of honor. Like, I work
Precisely.
so hard, I don't need rest. And it's like, well, how's that actually working for you?
Yeah.
And you don't notice how much better you feel until you actually start to prioritize it. But again, so many of these things, I feel like they're not for any fault of our own because it is a product of society. So we really are in this hustle culture right now, where it's, work more, achieve more. Our self-worth is based on, how much we get done, how much money we make. And so it's like we feel as though we don't have the time to sleep because we have to be doing, doing, doing. And then the last thing I will say about this, because, and I can fall into this trap as well. I don't have kids, but I'm very busy throughout the day. And there's not a lot of time that I have for myself aside from, the short time that I take in the morning. But after that, it's like I'm on all day long. So what do we do at bedtime? We scroll our phone, we watch Netflix as a way to turn our brain off, to relax. I call it the sleep procrastination. And I think that really impacts people because now they're staying up too late, they're not getting enough sleep, and they feel like shit the next day, and it just repeats this vicious cycle. So, yeah,
Yep.
sleep would definitely be number one.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, society, they'll get into a competition. Everyone's trying to compete with each other. Oh yeah, well, this is where you're going to a toxic route where one person's like, hey, I slept for 5 hours. Well, I only slept for 4, and I'm going. It's like, oh, let's see who can do the most on the least amount of sleep. Totally unhealthy and totally wrong. But
Well, and last thing
yeah, go ahead.
one more thing I want to say about this, and this is the mistake that I made when I was in college, again, following the advice in the fitness magazines, which now that I look back on it, I'm like, oh, that was basically preparing for a fitness competition. So
Yeah.
go to the gym and do 45 to 60 minutes of fasted cardio and go back at night, lift weights, all of that.
Yep.
So I sacrificed a lot of sleep, both in college and I would say, the years after when I was still in that mentality. And rather than, okay, I'm going to do my cardio later in the day to get enough sleep. Yeah, I was probably, I don't know, going off of on 5 or 6 hours most days.
Yeah, it's tough and it's it'll catch up to you. And again, it's like low sleep can lead to that hangover feel. I don't drink in excess any longer. And the only times I do feel that hangover is when I'm not rested well.
That is so true.
Yeah.
And
So
also don't hit your snooze button because that has the same effect.
oh, I'm the worst. I have like 7 different alarm sets just to make
Do it.
sure. It's the worst. Those days are the worst. But we'll move on to number 2. And
Fun.
I'll just read the headline here just so we can talk more about it rather than me reading through all of it. So not taking rest days from your workouts. This kind of
Mhm.
goes along with that team no sleep or all that. It's balls to the wall mentality, the whole like just beast mode, right? Like every
Right.
day, no days off, all that stuff. So that's kind of what people don't understand is, when you are lifting weights and you're training properly, recovery is everything. That's where your muscle grows. When you're actually in the gym, you're tearing that down. When you leave the gym, you need to refeed that muscle with the right amount of amino acids and protein and carbohydrates and everything else. And that is the problem. And instead of bragging about it, you're supposed to take that time, right, Marci?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Team no days off, never miss a Monday. What else did you say? Beast mode. There are some other
Yeah.
cliches as well, which, I'm sure I preached at some point. I think for me, what it came down to was fear more than anything. So if I take a rest day, then I am losing progress. And not even so much from a muscle building perspective, even though, that has been a goal of mine for a very long time. but I was always trying to stay as lean as possible while also building muscle. So my fear was if I take a day off, I'm not going to be burning as many calories. I'm going to gain body fat, then I'm not going to be as lean. So yeah, I was doing something pretty much every day. So strength training anywhere from 4 to 5 times a week. I don't think I ever got up to 6. I may be incorrect by that, but at least 5 when I was following more of a body part split. And then on the off days, I was doing whether it was just like a longer cardio session or a HIIT interval session. I at one point was doing a lot of like band workouts, like Brett Contreras stuff, right? So like let's use the booty band and do, and I mean, granted, was that really impairing recovery all that much? Maybe not, but I think it was just useless, to be honest with you.
Right,
And I
right.
really never saw any improvements from it.
Eh,
Like, yeah, so
You
it
were
was just like what I was
mentally you were
right.
thinking you were needed to do more, and
Exactly.
like 1 and 2 you have right there, that'll lead to burnout right there. Going
Mhm.
low sleep and then not resting, like
Yeah.
that will just lead to burnout and
Well,
then
and hampering recovery.
oh
So,
yeah,
yeah, we only can tolerate so much stress as humans before we exceed our recovery capacity. So I think that was one of the problems or the mistakes that I made. And probably one of the reasons why I had such a hard time building muscle is because I wasn't giving my body the opportunity to recover. And a lot of what I was adding in, because in addition to those booty band workouts, I was also following some of Jordan Syatt's workouts. So I was doing like his strength training programs, probably 4 days per week. And then on top of that, I was adding like metabolic finisher type things on the off days. So yes, it was cardio, but I also think it was a lot of junk volume and it just it impaired my ability to recover. So and then
yeah,
I was like burning a lot of calories, yes, but taking away what I needed to actually build the muscle.
right, right, and that leads right
And
into your
also,
oh, go ahead.
oh, really quick, also like
Yeah,
if fat loss is the goal, you actually have less resources to recover.
right.
So a lot of times people make the mistake that, oh, if I have a fat loss goal, I need to increase the intensity. I need to increase the amount of days that I'm training, when really it's the opposite. You want to do minimum effective dose, probably lower the volume because you do not have as much fuel from a calorie perspective, and a calorie deficit is a stressor on itself. So that's going to make it more challenging as well.
Absolutely. And you segued even perfect into number 3, even more perfect than you had before, because number 3, as a badge of honor you don't want to wear, is living off low calories. And again, this comes into that fat loss thing of like people, I believe, have this ingrained thought that any morsel of food that goes within their body, this is eating disorder kind of stuff, is going to contribute immediately to fat gain on their body. And I know
Mhm.
MyFitnessPal hasn't helped out with this, because if you don't put your accurate numbers in there, I believe they default women to 1,200 calories.
It's
And
like no matter how much they weigh or like what their stats are.
yeah, it
It's
doesn't
crazy.
matter. They're all just, here's 1,200. That's and I'll tell you this, as a nutrition person, I don't think I've had anyone, any female or male for that matter, at anywhere near 1,200 calories.
Yeah.
So, it's just, walking around saying you slept for 3 hours and you ate 400 calories and did, a 9 hour workout. I mean, those aren't
Right.
badges of honor. So you got
No.
calories are you have a range, like Marci mentioned, the deficit, right? You have a calorie deficit range, which is just underneath your maintenance level for fat loss. You want to be within there. You don't want to fall under that. You'll be depleted. You'll lose muscle mass, especially if you're not training hard. So
Right.
living off low calories, I'm sure you've been there. I know I have.
Oh, absolutely. And it's interesting because when I was at my worst from a mental health perspective in regards to my nutrition, so back in college, I was not counting calories. I have no idea what the amount was, but looking back, if I had to guess, it was probably, yeah, in like the 1,000 to 1,200 range because I was afraid of fat unless it was nuts. That was like really the only fat that I allowed myself. I
Mhm.
ate very little carbohydrates unless it was oatmeal that had to be around my workout. So the majority of the food that I was eating was very lean, low calorie, sugar-free, everything. I chewed 2 packs of gum a day. I probably drank, I don't know, 3 cups of coffee, at least a Diet Coke, if not two. So yeah, tons of caffeine,
Mhm.
very few calories, lots of artificial sweeteners, and then, like, I can't believe it's not butter, sugar-free Jello, and protein and vegetables. Like that was my
Yep.
diet
That's
essentially.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's we would be shocked, sometimes at how low it can be. I recall being on a website called Spark People. Remember that one?
Oh yeah, I've heard of that.
I think it's still around. I don't know, but I didn't even have a target. I didn't know what I was doing. I just heard that you have to try to count your calories, check how many calories you're eating, and all I was doing, I must have been in my uh, early 20s, and I think I was just trying to stay as low as I could. I was
Hmm.
just like, hey, okay, on Tuesday I only had 1,100. Let's try for 1,000 this time and see. This is gonna help. And then I go and do the treadmill, and I'd be starving going to sleep. That was my day.
Yeah.
That was terrible. So, and doing that, you'll probably skip meals, which is number 4 here for you, which is not a
Mhm.
badge of honor, is skipping meals and just getting by on caffeine. And it says here in your first line, coffee is not a meal, even if you put a whole stick of butter in it. Keto people or whatever that was. But
Yeah.
why don't you tell us
Yeah.
about skipping meal and thinking caffeine can get you by?
Sure. Well, and I made that mistake too because I practiced intermittent fasting for a while. So I did this thing called lean gains when I was in my mid 20s. So that was the whole 16-hour fast, 8-hour eating window. I think I was drinking coffee during the fast and probably putting coconut oil in it or something like that, which that in itself leads to more calories. But in my experience, what happens, because I'll be honest, I work predominantly with women. So they say that they don't have an appetite in the morning. They're not hungry, which is actually a sign or can be a sign of a suppressed metabolism. If you can go hours and hours after waking up without any hunger, it's like there's probably some metabolic adaptation going on. Especially depending on when you ate the night before. So that's always a little bit of a red flag to me. But then the other thing that happens is because women put other people before themselves, whether it's their spouse, their kids, their job, they are hitting the ground running in this very, go, 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 high cortisol state. And probably also drinking coffee or tea, anything that has caffeine in it, maybe not even as a way to suppress their appetite but because that's all they have time for. It's like, I don't have time to cook a breakfast, to sit down and eat a healthy meal. So they will essentially go until, 11, 12, maybe 1 o'clock without a meal, but not really feeling that hunger either because, caffeine and cortisol is an appetite suppressant. So what happens is, they're underfueled throughout the rest or throughout the majority of the day. The stress is shutting off their appetite. And then once they get to, let's say, I don't know, late afternoon, 5 o'clock, stress starts to come down a little bit. The caffeine is wearing off. And because they are, short on calories leading up into that point, then all of a sudden the hunger monster makes an appearance and they're ravenous and eating everything that they can get their hands on. It's also the time when, if the stress was high from the day, they are using food and alcohol as a way to self-soothe. And let's be honest, we are not, going for carrot sticks and broccoli. It's the chips, the cookies, the ice cream, like all of those really calorically dense foods. So they may feel like, oh, well, I haven't eaten that much during the day. So it's almost okay for me to eat all of this at night, but really the calories just end up adding up very quickly. So
And
we want to
and
make
they end up
sure that
in. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, like, so yes, it is important to be well nourished, starting earlier in the day. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that you have to eat a full breakfast as soon as your feet hit the floor. I typically wake up around 6:30. My first meal might be at 9 or 9:30. So, like, yes, I do go a couple of hours because I practice a form of intermittent fasting, or I would say time restricted feeding. There, is benefits to that. So for me, it's at least a 12, if not more, of like a 14-hour fast that works well for me and my body. I still feel like I am well nourished. My appetite is regulated, hunger cravings are in check throughout the day, and I don't have that desire to overeat at night. So, yeah, maybe you wait a couple of hours after eating if you are not training in the morning. If you are training in the morning, like absolutely, have at least a small something with protein in it. But if you're not, yeah, wait a couple of hours, make sure you are eating a sufficient, first meal, because that first meal of the day really does matter. It is, one, if it does include protein, which it should, It's going to make sure that your blood sugar is in check. You don't have those highs and lows, which will, I mean, I'm sure everyone has experienced the hangry feeling, right? Where you're both like hungry and irritable. And so what do? You reach for the like more caffeine or a bagel or a muffin to get that quick hit of energy. You might feel good for an hour and then you have that crash and now you're just on that roller coaster. So yeah, eating a balanced breakfast, one, it's going to give you the energy and the fuel that you need to get through your day, but it's also going to help mitigate overeating at night. And then, after a fairly long overnight fast, our body is in that depleted state. So if you have protein, it's going to make sure that you are not tapping into muscle if your body needs it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you said two things I was going to jump into. He says, we just think alike so much. It's hilarious. The hanger feeling that you're going to get because you're going to be in an irritable mood. And when you're eating, what good of a trade-off is that? If you're going to starve yourself to be in a bad mood, I mean, if you're already looking in the mirror or feeling bad because of your poor diet that you already had, why would you trade that off for a starvation type feel that's going to keep you in the same miserable state? And then you mentioned protein, like I was going to jump in on. And just because I've had people call me and tell me, hey, I haven't eaten all day today. This is great. I'm doing great. And I've said, no, you want to be eating because not only are you, depriving yourself of calories, but you're putting yourself in a deep protein deficit that you still need to hit. Like I said at the beginning of this, when I did these 5 pillars of body composition, sleep was up there, but you know what? Strength training along with protein and calories are also in there too. And, if you're not having your protein and calories where they need to be, you know what? That's where the problems lie, because if you have those in check, your fat and carbs will fall into place for the most part.
Yeah.
You could split hairs on that a little bit, but yeah, skipping meals, just saying, hey, I missed this meal, or I forgot to eat. I hear that a lot. I didn't have time to eat, or I forgot. I never forget to eat. I love it.
I'm like, I'm looking at the clock. When's my next meal?
Yeah.
And the thing too is, so many women, they struggle as it is to get enough protein. They don't have the appetite for it. It makes them, too full too quickly. So whatever the excuse might be, they're making it even harder on themselves, delaying that first meal, because now they're going to have to play catch up the rest of the day. So those meals are going to have to be even bigger if they do want to hit a minimum protein requirement, which is so important, again, from, a hunger and appetite regulation, blood sugar perspective, but also for someone who has a physical, whether that is fat loss, whether it is muscle gain, protein is key.
Right. And you always want to be counting your calories and knowing your calories on your intake. What you probably don't want to do, which is number 5 here, is chasing those burn calories and, telling everyone how many calories you burned on that treadmill. Let me tell you, that treadmill doesn't know you from anything. You can put your weight in there and a couple of things, but that is inaccurate. And the only benefit to those calorie counters are if you're on that treadmill and you burned 300 calories one day and then you burn 600 the next day, the only thing you can assume is that, yes, maybe you were a little more intense the next day, but those could be totally off. So chasing calories burned is a waste of time. And it's an estimate, and those counters, I don't even look at them. How about you?
No, never. And I actually I don't even know if I ever really have, to be honest with you. Even back in my like disordered eating and exercise days, I'm not sure if I paid attention to it. These days I definitely don't, because like you said, it's inaccurate, it's a best guess, and typically it's an underestimate, not an overestimate. So if it says that you're burning 500, maybe you're really burning more like 200. The other thing that happens, especially when it comes to cardio, is the more you do it, the longer you do it, the more efficient you become, which may sound like a good thing, but it's actually not. So basically what happens is your body, because it's a survival mechanism, it doesn't want you to burn all those calories. It sees that almost as a threat, like, oh, she's trying to lose body fat, but it doesn't care if you have 6-pack abs. It wants to keep you alive. So it's very smart. And what it will do is start to down regulate the amount of calories that it burns to make up for what you are doing with this activity. So let's say, you start going to the gym and you're doing 30 minutes, 3 times a week on the step mill. That's my preferred method. Well, after, let's say, a month, those same 30 minutes, instead of burning maybe 300 calories, are now going to only burn 200. But the machine does not know that. It only knows the inputs that you are giving it, your height, your weight, the time, all of it. So What a lot of people, make the mistake doing is thinking that, okay, well, I burned that many calories, so now I can factor that into my deficit, or now I can eat that amount of calories back. And it's like, no, I'm sorry, it doesn't work that way. And, going back to my Fitness Pal, or really, I think any tracker, it will often, unless you shut it off, give you those calories to eat back that you burn through exercise. And now, people are actually not in a deficit, because whenever you calculate a deficit, you are calculating your movement, your exercise throughout the day as well. So I think that's why a lot of people struggle and just end up in maintenance if they're eating those calories burned back.
Right. And I was actually going to mention that too. And because I see it all the time, because I manage my clients, and I'm sure you do too, in my Fitness Pal, whether they're tracking or they've put a meal plan in or however they've done it. And if they have a Fitbit or Apple Watch or something that's connected to my Fitness Pal, that program says at the bottom, you've earned 247 extra calories from exercise today. No, you didn't, because A, that's inaccurate. And B, if you had the correct macronutrients and calories in there loaded, that's already factored in through a macro calculator or from a coach that's kind of estimated your totally daily expenditure that you're putting out there. So that is a terrible thing. And I have to tell these clients, please disconnect this or find a way of what's adding that in, or please ignore the hell out of it, because that is going to thwart everything for you. And, that's definitely something that causes problems. So forget about tracking out what's going out. It basically also what you said, like the bathroom scale, like the treadmill, and what's counting for you. You're a human being. We're very intricate. We're not just pieces of material. You go on the scale, you go on a treadmill. It doesn't know if you're a person or what's on there. It doesn't matter. You can just let the treadmill run with nothing on it. It's going to tell you it's this invisible person burned these calories when nobody's even on it. Doesn't know. It's not that smart. So ignore it. It's just one less thing you have to pay attention to or care about. So,
Right. Exactly.
and then, that could lead to, it's trying to find too many things at once to be focused on during this life change process, during this fitness journey. You're going to start striving for perfection, which is number 6 on your list. And I think this is actually the number one, get rid of that first, because perfection doesn't exist. It's going to make everything feel like a failure, and you're just aiming for something that is not going to be sustainable. And I think this just goes on beyond diet, exercise, and anything else. That's just a good one for life, right?
For life. Well, because everyone feels like, and I mean, I think I can fall into this trap as well. Like I said, all of these badges of honor are something that I have experienced myself, and I'm assuming you have too. But yeah, we see the first mistake as a sign of failure, and that we are not we make it mean that we are a failure, that we are not cut out to be successful. And it's like, no, you're just learning. So you can't expect to have something mastered overnight if you've never done it before. Same thing, let's say it's mindset. That's what most of my clients struggle with, like the all or nothing thinking. And that probably started when you were young. So much of our beliefs and our behaviors are a product of our conditioning from childhood. So if you have these deep rooted neural pathways in your brain, it's going to take a long time to undo those, right? So you have to give yourself grace. You have to be patient, kind with yourself, practice. And the more you do, the more you will improve. Again, it doesn't mean that you're always going to be perfect. You are a human. You're not a robot. But if you can learn learn from those mistakes, what was the lesson in this? And then how can I do something different the next time? Then you are going to keep making progress. But someone sees, that mistake again as a failure, and it's like, well, I screwed up, might as well keep going. That's kind of where that all or nothing mentality comes into play. So let's say that Wednesday night they overate, week is shot, may as well just keep going on through the weekend. I'll get back on track on Monday. So now what has happened where they've taken maybe, I don't know, let's say 200 to 500 calorie mistake over their deficit, over their maintenance, whatever it might be. I mean, really, that's not going to do any damage in the long run. But now, if they keep going for days on end, then they have dug themselves into a really deep hole that is going to delay progress. So yeah, it's all about just, hey, I accept that happened. I forgive myself for making the mistake. I commit to doing better at the next opportunity, which can
Absolutely.
be the very next meal.
Yes, it really can, and that's what people kind of lose sight of, and they feel like there's this time construct it's in their head, and they feel like, well, I messed up this week, so I guess next Monday, it's going to be, and that's the worst way to go. And what people don't understand, like you said, if you overate 500-600 calories, you can, if you really wanted to be on it, you can reduce your calories by 100 each day for the next 6 days, and you're right back where you were. Your body doesn't know time; it doesn't really know days, hours, minutes, months. It doesn't know that. We made that up. It's instinctual. That's all it is. It's just ever going. It's just the way it is. So, that perfection mindset will be the first thing that will send people into a downward spiral, quitting and just having to go yo-yo back and forth. Then they start self-sabotaging because they feel like they're failures when they haven't even failed at all. And actually, you know what? You're supposed to fucking fail, people. Sorry, excuse my French,
Right.
but you're supposed to fail. And it's not even fail.
Exactly.
It's not even failure. You're supposed to, these mistakes and these struggles that you go through, this is what makes you the person that you're going to become. You're not going to just go and do it, and there's no end in sight either, because it's not like just be perfect for 90 days and your body, you're just going to be this new person at the end of it. No, you have to take everything you've learned, you have to take all this stuff, and then you have to carry that on forever and keep it going. And things are going to keep happening down the road in your life, and you're going to need to just not worry about being perfect all the time. Just need to do your best. There's going to be times when you're like 99% on point. There's going to be times when it's going to be 60, and you're going to have to accept that, because life doesn't work like that to your favor. You're just going to have to go with it and accept it and do your very best.
Right. Yeah. Life is all about seasons, right? So there's going to be times when you have more time, more capacity to give it your all, to put, the majority of your effort into it. I do not believe in the concept of balance. I'll be honest with you.
Mhm.
And then there's going to be times when, yeah, you have to take a step back because work is more stressful. Your kids are sick, life happens. And I like to see habits or behaviors, whatever the case may be, as more of a dial rather than an on or off switch. So when life does get crazy, when your capacity, your time has lessened, then you just turn that dial down a little bit rather than, completely stopping altogether.
Absolutely.
Um,
And like I said in an episode recently, I actually did a whole episode sort of on it. Stop waiting for a clear path when things die down to start with anything, because you know what? I get it. It's easier maybe mentally to focus on that. And I do see that. But what happens is you'll get there. You'll have this clear time. There's no holidays, no parties, whatever it is, work slowed down. And now you can focus on your fitness a little bit. That's great. But you have to have a plan in place for when things start going crazy again, because it will happen, and then you're not prepared, you're not equipped with that mindset to be able to carry this fitness lifestyle, this meal prepping and all this other stuff that you want to do. You won't be able to keep that up because you did it with during the downtime. So the busiest time, is what it is, and it's not always going to be perfect. You're going to have to wing it, and that's the best thing to learn and kind of do it mentally. So along with that, like you say here in number 7 is saying yes to everything. So I get that. That's just something people, they become martyrs, and they do it to themselves because they just try to people please and basically just say yes to everything. That includes free food too. Like I've seen it before. Food comes in if you're at your work, at your office, and hey, yes, I'll eat that. I'll eat that. Just because it's free, you don't have to eat it. But this goes another one, like your previous one, Marci. Like this is also for life too, right? I think.
Well, it's so interesting you say that because I didn't even consider it in that context where people say yes to everything, even when it means the free food. I was more so using it from the perspective of saying yes to like social obligations or saying yes to, helping other people out, because I do think that we wear that as a badge of honor, or the more we do, the more we feel we are worthy of love, success, whatever the case may be. And I think too, a lot of people have a people pleaser mentality. This was certainly, and still is, it's one thing that I am continuing to work on to this day. I don't like saying no because I don't want to offend someone. I want to be seen as someone who is, I mean, I don't know if like genuine's not really the right word, but I want to be the helper, and yeah, I want to like be giving to other people. And so when I have that boundary, when I do say no, then there is this sense of guilt. Like I feel selfish and I don't want to feel that way. So yeah, a lot of my self-worth came from how productive I was, how much I could do during the day, saying yes to everything, and hoping that people would see that and be like, oh, wow, she works so hard. That felt really good because like I couldn't give myself that validation. So I think that does happen again, especially with women. I hate to, put them in a box, but I just don't see men caring about these things as much. But to your point, I think it also goes back to people pleasing when it comes to food. So how many times have you had a food pusher say, "Oh, like a little bit won't hurt. Come on, live a little." And that's their projection that they are putting onto you. But because you don't want to offend, because you want to be part of the crowd, whatever the case may be, or just live it up. Yeah, you say yes, and then that is essentially sabotaging your own goals.
Absolutely is. And, the more you say yes to things, whether it's food, whether it's obligations or things like you said, helping people out, the more they expect it. And a lot of times that conditions people to take you for granted. And then when you do say no, it actually becomes almost offensive to them in a sense, just because you have made yourself so available to these people that they think something has changed or something is wrong, but you just started to set some boundaries and had to do what you had to do for yourself. So that's a good one. And so that you have to do it. You can do it politely. Saying no doesn't have to be this mean evil thing. It's something you can do very politely and just explain yourself if you have to, or just find a way around it without damaging any relationships. That's the best way to go.
Yeah.
So to move on, we got two left here, and this is a big one to me. Number 8 is always being busy. Now I kind of say this is the martyr person, the person that needs to tell everyone how busy they are. They're the ones that brag about not using their PTOs at work. It's low-key victim mentality for me, a cry for approval. And it's a distraction from something that they're probably just not addressing, that they have to feel like they're so busy all the time and tell everyone that, right?
Yes, yes, absolutely. Yeah, the martyrdom is so true. That's a great way to describe it. And again, I think it goes back to what I was saying previously. So being busy, again, and I keep using the word badge of honor. That was the name of the post, but yeah, I struggled with the same thing. Like, oh, the more that I do, the more accomplished I am, then you will see me as valuable. But also, I think that being busy is a distraction from not looking at what you actually need to look at in your life. So what feels uncomfortable that you do not want to have to face, whether it's feelings about yourself. Maybe you are in a relationship that needs to end and that feels uncomfortable. So you use this busyness as a distraction rather than having to sit quietly with yourself and kind of recognize what your truth is and where things in your life need to change. And that can be very uncomfortable for people. So busyness, it's not just in terms of, oh, I'm, spending so much time at work. It could also be I'm, in the gym all the time. Like I am constantly having to be stimulated, like go, 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 because when I slow down, that's when those thoughts really creep in. And that can be incredibly unsettling for someone.
Yeah, it's something that's tough to learn. Something I've had to learn in the last several years myself is to be alone with my thoughts and not scrolling anything, and not running to the gym just to get away, not running to a bar or to a restaurant or to making a phone call, whatever it is, just to kind of be there for yourself. And always being busy is definitely a distraction from something that we're not addressing for sure.
And it's very similar to people who say like, oh, the gym is my therapy. And I'm like, no, no, no. Therapy is therapy. Like gym can be an outlet. It's a way to relieve stress, to get your mind off things temporarily. Like, yes, it's a very healthy outlet, but people absolutely take it too far and they feel like, oh, if I'm at the gym, I'm getting that aggression out, I'm de-stressing. But yeah, you are temporarily. But then once that workout is done, similar to once you finish the drink, once you finish the food, anything that you were using as that coping mechanism, you are still left to sit with your feelings and your thoughts about yourself and your life.
Absolutely.
So it's not addressing anything.
Agreed. I totally agree with you. And, just to close that one up, one thing about me is, if I have something going on in my head, I can't go to the gym for therapy because I get too distracted. And if you're distracted in the gym, your workout suffers because you're supposed to be connected to the workout. The mind muscle connection is supposed to be there. It's supposed to be focused on that. If you have a problem outside within your head or whatever it is, and that's where your focus is, you're not focused on the movements that you're doing, and you're just not there, and you're not being as effective as it has to be. So again, and like I mentioned before on this, I have 5 pillars: your mental health, your stress levels, and everything else that's going on upstairs is what's driving it all. It'll pick your sleep up. That'll mess your sleep up, I should say, and then screw up your diet and your training. It's just, you got to get it right, and you can't run away from it. You got to go there and take care of the big stuff, the emotion, the mental stuff. It sounds like white noise, but it's so true. It's there.
Yeah.
So to close it up, number 9, this is very common all the time, and we get too excited about that scale and those scale victories, chasing a lower number on the scale. Now that's the thing that drives me nuts is we give the scale, just like we were talking about the treadmills and those counters, we give the scale way too much credit in either direction. Whether it spikes up, we get demoralized, we get pissed off, we want to quit. If it goes down, we get so excited. It's the driver of our happiness. And even if we lose more than what we should, 1 to 2 pounds a week is healthy. Okay. So people, it depends on your body composition, obviously, but for the most part, it's 1 to 2 pounds a week. Some people will drop more than that and keep getting more excited. And then they'll go back into the 1 to 2 pounds, but they'll remember that they lost 3 or 4 pounds, especially when they first start out and they could do that little like debloat time where they're like 6, 7 pounds might drop off the scale right away. I said, all right, now don't get too used to that because that's not going to be like that every time. So chasing that lower number on the scale, that can be a problem. And again, leads to all kinds of issues, right?
Absolutely. And I have already made 2 posts, I think, in the past couple of days about the scale. So one was, be careful of the meaning that you give to the scale, because as you said, so many people, they want to see it go down as quickly as possible. That's very validating. They believe that they're making progress that way. And so what are they going to do? They're going to start, over exercising, severely under eating, restricting calories, cutting out foods. So something that maybe you can white knuckle for a short period of time, but eventually it's going to catch up with you. You're going to rebound in the other direction. And so kind of where I was going with that is like, yes, you can use extreme methods to see that number drop really quickly, but you're going to be losing mostly water, mostly glycogen. So it's kind of false weight anyways. And then if you carry that on for too long, eventually you're going to be losing predominantly muscle, not body fat. And then what happens? You just end up a smaller, softer version of your former self, irritable, depleted, and just, not living a good quality of life. Whereas if you can allow the scale to move down in a slower, more sustainable, or at a slower, more sustainable rate, then you are going to be better fueled. You'll have more energy. Your workouts are going to be stronger. You are living a better quality of life. And at the same time, now you're losing predominantly body fat, not muscle. And so your body composition is actually going to change. So even if the scale isn't going down at all, or maybe you're only losing a couple of pounds, your body will look so much different. Your clothes are going to be fitting better. So that's what people really have to focus on. And then my post today was, if your measurements are decreasing, if your pictures are improving, if your strength is going up in the gym, there was one other thing, I can't remember what it was, then I promise you're making progress no matter what the scale says.
Absolutely. And I think my pet peeve is the non-scale victory, because what that tells me is the scale is the king. Here's some non-scale victories. No, some of those victories, or maybe all of them, are better than your scale victory. I had a client tell me, how her blood pressure was better, her blood sugar was better, and there's always a non-scale victory. I said, this is better than the scale. You'd rather see this from your doctor or whatever this is. This is your internal health. This is your livelihood. This is a victory, not a non-scale victory. This is a win. This is bigger than the scale. These are, switching things in your head, looking at food differently, seeing it differently, being able to restrict and stay away from certain things at certain points. These are things, breaking these habits, getting away from that 750 calories coffee in the morning. These are victories. The scale will just kind of slowly go along with all your other victories. So fuck the scale, guys. Come on. Let's
Yeah.
let's forget the scale a bit and, use it as a tool, use it as a gauge, but don't let it dictate your mood, your progress, or anything else. And especially don't let it make you quit, because
Right.
it's a
Right.
$20 machine from Target that doesn't know what the hell's standing on it. Bottom line.
Yes. And
So
I mean, easier said than done. I get it.
sure,
So
sure.
I
It's
we've all been
conditioning.
there. It is
It's con-
conditioning.
we're conditioned.
Absolutely.
We're
Yeah.
conditioned. We're conditioned to think right away. We want to lose fat. We got to run around all over the place, eat as little as possible, and hope the scale drops 9 pounds a day. That's what they want to see, but it's
Yeah.
just that's not reality. And the sooner we could come to acceptance of that, that's really where the progress is made, is acceptance, accepting these things that you thought were real, that you thought was the way, it aren't, and it should be freeing. And that's when you've made that acceptance, when you feel like you're free of that prison, of that scale, of that treadmill, of those of avoiding all those foods that you think you can't touch because they cause fat when the minute they touch your tongue, they cause fat
Yeah.
gain. So
No, which is
that's what
just
it is.
not
But
true.
I
So,
again, yeah. And this is a brilliant post. I thought this is well written, and I thought it was well put together. And when I went through this, I know you and we talk a little bit here and there. We have some fun conversations around fitness and everything like that. And when I saw this, I was like, we were saying we're going to do an episode together, and I said this is the one to do. I said this is some good information. We can go bullet point, and kind of go. And hey, I know we're appreciate you being here. And anything
absolutely.
else?
It was good.
Yeah,
No,
absolutely.
I think we covered it. That was
We
an
got
in-depth
it.
episode.
So I want to wish you a happy early birthday, since you said you're turning 40 at the end
Yes,
of the
the
month.
big 40 on the
Okay.
30th. What about you? We're the same age, aren't we?
I just turned 40 actually in May of last year.
Right, that's right.
So you'll be joining that club soon here. And
Hey,
it's
I've heard good things about it.
oh
So
good.
I'm not as emotional as I thought I was gonna be.
Much like the readings on the scale and things like that, your age is really just a number, like they say. It carries some value based on biological time clocks and things. But you
Yeah.
know what? You can feel good at 40. You can feel good at 50. I feel better right now at 40 than I did at 20. I know I did, because I was
I agree 100%.
yes,
Absolutely.
the amount of alcohol I put in, the way I was training, the way I was sleeping, the everything. It does get better. So if you're listening and you don't follow Marci on Instagram, and that's the best way to contact her, or if you just want to follow her, she puts out some great information, wonderful photos of avocados all the time. And so just check her out. It's at Marci Nevin, that's MarCinevin. So check her out there. Again, I'm Mike, and you can find me on Instagram as well at MFS Wellness, and in email, mike@mfswellness.com. So in closing, Marci, anything else to put out there before we shut it down?
No, I think we covered it. Thank you again for having me on. It was great.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. Well, everyone, thank you for listening. Again, this has been Marci. I'm Mike, and we'll talk to you in the next episode.
Bye.